The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam, all the way on the other side of the globe. Sam, how are you doing?
Not quite the other side of the globe. I am doing other side of the ocean. I am doing well. Still, as Mike said, still out of town this week. But we got to fix to the microphone issue. So if that bothered you on the last episode, again, I apologize. And we are back and excited to be joined by a regular guest who at this point is making his 9th or 10th or 100th appearance on the podcast or something like that. This is what, our 4th year of doing this, our 5th year of doing this?
I think it's our 4th, yeah.
I think it's our 4th season of doing this. So I am, as always, very excited for the tradition to continue. I know for a lot of longtime listeners, it's, I think even maybe for some of them, their favorite thing that we do, or one of their favorites for sure.
Yep, this is a tradition. So joining us to go over our over-unders is Max McCauley. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Wow, like 9 or 10 times, huh? It just still feels fresh. It's the first time. It's fantastic to be with you guys. But I love this episode, the over-unders. This season, we were talking a little before we started. This season's going to be a little odd because of, everyone listening to this knows why. So we'll see what you came up with, Mike.
It's a weird, how have you felt about this off-season, Max? We talked to you after the season ended to go over the over-unders from last year. And this was like during... it was probably right before the Kevin Durant saga, and then all the things that came after that, matching DeAndre Ayton, Jay Crowder drama, and then, like, more than anything, nothing happened other than, of course, Robert Sarver. But nothing with the basketball team changing very much. How have you felt about this offseason so far?
Yeah, the vibes aren't necessarily immaculate, I wouldn't say. But, you mentioned the Sarver thing. I mean, we got to not lose the forest for the trees. Like, that's obviously the most important thing that could have happened. And in long term, that's just fantastic for the Phoenix Suns and their prospects to finally win a title at some point. But, this particular season, if you look at the bench, you get a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. I think all of us have at least some gradation of nervous. No one's going into this feeling the way we felt last season, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think some aspects of these over-unders will reflect my state of mind, I guess is a way to put it. For those who don't know how this works, if you've never heard one of these episodes before, basically I look at stats and I make these up. I try and predict what is an accurate-ish number
and
that would get...
You're pretty damn good at it, to be fair to you.
Agreed.
It's good that you're the one who makes the lines and not either of the two of us.
It's gone well so far. I'll say I'm going to point out one that has been wrong every year, or not close every year when we get to it. But most of them are made up. There's also just the regular over-under wins that is set by gambling sites, gambling apps, and stuff like that we do guess that one as well. And then we keep track of it. I think all of us have won one before, and I think we've done this 4 times, and I think including you, the listeners, have won one before because I do set up a Google form where you can go in and type your guesses in there, select over and under on all of these, and we keep track of that as sort of one amalgamation of all of the listeners and their guesses based on the percentage of what is picked in each one of those. Feel free to write down your answers too. If you get them all right, you can brag about it at the end of the year. It does take a whole year to know whether or not you were right. So there is a lot of time, which is always fascinating, I think, because when we look at them at the end of the year, oftentimes we're like, what were we thinking? Like, how could we even think that? Things change so much over the course of a season, but we have quite a bit. So I say we just jump right into it. How do you guys feel?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I feel good.
All right. I'm starting with the brand new starter, which is Cameron Johnson, and we're going with points per game. Cameron Johnson, as we know, currently injured, but did participate as a full participant in practice, I think yesterday, which is Saturday. We're recording this on Sunday. So it seems like he's probably going to be in the lineup at the start of the season. I set the line at 14 points per game. Now, last season, he averaged 12.5 points per game. You might be thinking, that's kind of low. Maybe I'm putting thoughts in your head right now. The reason I went kind of lower with this number is as I was watching him in preseason with the starters, I did kind of realize there's just not a ton of shots to go around. And in the way that Jay Crowder was guarded, in that they just kind of left him, I don't anticipate that that's going to happen for Cameron Johnson. I think that there's a chance that his spacing does wonders for the offense, even if that number feels kind of low. I'm just not sure how many shots there are to go around with this starting group. So maybe I set it too low. But Max, we'll start with you. What do you think of that number, and what do you think about Cameron Johnson starting this season?
Yeah, no, I actually think you set a pretty perfect number. I'm just looking at the points per game from the starters last year, and they're all above that. All his fellow starters, including Mikal, was at 14.2 last year, which I think is a really interesting number for this line. Yeah. I think I'm going to go just barely over, slightly over. Obviously, you expect his minutes to go up pretty significantly. They were 26 last year. You're probably going to get 33 at least, I would think, this year. So by that alone, I think he'll hit the over. But you're right. I mean, it's going to be. First of all, you asked general thoughts. I'm excited about it. Obviously, I love Cam Johnson. I think that starting unit is going to be excellent. But the flip side of the coin is we already kind of mentioned it. The bench is going to miss him. I think quite a bit. Yeah. They'll probably do some staggering with those wings a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they operate in the bench unit without him.
Sam, what do you think?
The first number I looked at here, and again, to explain how it works for people who haven't, we figure out all of these lines on the fly. We don't know them beforehand, Max and I, that is.
I don't share them. That's right. No, I don't share them with Max and Sam until we start recording.
But I just, as soon as you said his name, I looked up his player profile, and he averaged 16.3 points in the starting lineup last year, in the however many games he did start, which is encouraging. However, kind of to Mike's point, it was like the best basketball that we've ever seen Cameron Johnson play. He shot 50, 40, 90 consistently over those games. I don't know if he's going to do that over a full season. I don't know that that's a reasonable expectation. And then couple the fact that, he's going to be sharing ball duties with some pretty high caliber talents in general. But I don't know. I could definitely go back and forth here. I'm tempted to take the over, though. I think I'm going to settle on the over, and I think the reason why is really just that this Cameron Johnson starting at power forward saga is maybe, if not the most, then one of the most interesting narratives we actually have about Suns basketball going into this season, and I need something to be really optimistic and feel good about. And if there's anything I can point at right now and be like, I feel good about that guy, I think that guy is Cameron Johnson for now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how far over he's going to go over this, but I think I'm inclined to agree with Max, 15-ish, something like that. Yeah. So I'll hit the over.
It's a scenario, I think, for me, when thinking about the players on the Suns, where I'm wondering, can Cameron Johnson, Cameron Johnson, DeAndre, and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges all increase their scoring averages from last year? Is that what we're anticipating, when all of them are going to share the court together for the majority of the minutes they play together this season? It's possible. I think there are probably scenarios where that has happened, especially when the bench is bad, as Max has pointed out, and you kind of need to rely on these starters whenever they're on the floor, even if they're not together as a unit. I think I'm gonna go over 2, but I have to find a way, and maybe you guys do too, or maybe you don't, to say under on
someone else,
one of these other guys. Yeah, well, maybe, how can they all increase?
Maybe Chris Paul just has the season that I think Suns fans are expecting, where he averages 6 points and 20 assists per game this year. Maybe we get that kind of year out of Chris Paul.
He just turns into Rondo.
Those games where he doesn't shoot until the third quarter will be, they happen, but it's not every game. But maybe this year it'll be every game.
Well, and now that he has Cam instead of Jay in the starting lineup with him, I mean, the weapons he has with him in the starting lineup are going to, point him in that direction, I would think.
Yeah, I think he could probably. I actually didn't even do a Chris Paul over-under in this one, but he could probably average the most assists in the NBA again.
Yep.
I would say, just based on who he's surrounded by. I think the offense is going to be really good. I mean, this is something, Max, that Sam and I have talked about. I think it signals a style shift in play for the Suns to put Cameron Johnson in the starting lineup, just sort of relying more on the offense than the defense, where they were bad. I mean, I think they finished the season 8th or 9th in defense and like 3rd in offense last year. Something to that effect. I think this season that defensive rating might slip a little bit, and the offense could be one of the best in the NBA once again.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with Crowder, obviously, where that trade ends up landing them. But right now, I mean, there's no way their defense projects to be as good as it was last year. JaVale obviously also gone, so I agree. The offense is going to have to be carry some of that load, I think.
Just real quick, I think JaVale being gone is also a good point right there that Max mentioned, and important to bring up. Like, in terms of where do these lost points come from, JaVale was kind of a high caliber offensive player for the Suns. Like, not in the sense that he scored 20 points a game. I think he scored 10 points a game, but he took a lot of shots per minute or per 36. And I don't know that necessarily Jock Landale or Bismack Biyombo were bringing the same offensive production. So I don't know. There are a few places I think you can sniff around to get the shots for a guy like Cam. But we'll see.
Yeah. And maybe they all end up with a higher average in points per game. Maybe it just increases a little less than anticipated for some players than others, because I have over-unders for points for all of those guys that we'll go over as we go over this, but, it's possible they go over their last season but don't go over on the over-under that I set. Cameron Johnson could average 13.5 points per game and still hit the under, and that's more than he averaged last year. Let's do some DeAndre Ayton ones. I have 3.
Wow.
For DeAndre Ayton. Yeah. Technically I have 4, and I'll explain the 4th one later, but the first one I have, and this is just something that I have personally been thinking about a lot, and this is DeAndre Ayton minutes per game. And it's a weird thing with DeAndre Ayton where he really has not averaged a ton of minutes per game throughout his career. And last season he averaged less than 30 minutes per game. He averaged 29.5 minutes per game. I looked up how many centers in the NBA averaged 30 minutes or more last season, and there were 11. So only 11 centers in the NBA averaged 30 minutes or more per game last season. I'm going to read you the list of centers. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Jared Allen, Jonas Valanciunas, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Nikola Vucevic, Sabonis, and Christian Wood, who is like a forward center, kind of more a forward. I think that we can all agree that we are assuming that DeAndre is essentially a top 10 center. I mean, I think some would make the case higher, right?
Pretty easily.
You could make a pretty convincing top 5 center case for DeAndre Ayton, but he has yet to crack that in minutes per game. So I set the over-under for him in minutes per game at 31 minutes, which in the past he has averaged more than. And I guess my question for you guys is, we have been sold this idea that he's coming into the season in great shape. And one of the reasons I think DeAndre Ayton has not averaged a ton of minutes over the course of his career is that when he starts to get tired, his play is affected by that. He's not always in perfect shape when it comes to that. Do you think, and Sam, we'll start with you in this one, that DeAndre Ayton will average over or under 31 minutes per game this coming season?
I mean, 31, we're talking about an increase of 1.5 minutes is all I need.
1.5 minutes, but
is all I need to hit the over
here? It would make him top 10 in minutes per game for centers.
Yeah, I'll hit it. I think I'll hit it. Oh. I like it. I mean, I don't know. I don't hesitate that much on this one. Again, I think it's about the strength of
Jock Landale. Just kidding.
No, actually, I mean, I think Monty really likes Jock Landale, but does he like Jock Landale enough to play him 18 minutes per game like he did JaVale McGee or whatever JaVale McGee got last year? I don't know that he does.
Yeah.
I don't know that he does, and I don't know that he likes Bismack Biyombo that much either.
Or Dario Saric. There's a pretty crowded center rotation for this team right now.
It is a pretty crowded center rotation, but I also think Monty Williams generally understands that Ayton is Ayton's by far the best out of those four players.
Yeah,
and also that
right.
he's the best blend of skills in a lot of ways between all of those guys, in a way that he combines mobility and defense and athleticism and a little bit of shooting. There's a reason he's much, much better than those other three guys. The Suns, in order to be the best version of themselves and in order to be successful, they need Ayton to continue lasting longer and deeper into games and important games and playoff games. And to his credit, I think what he's done a great job of improving even more at over the years is keeping himself out of foul trouble. And so I think it's interesting, all the more reason that it's interesting that we see him logging less than 30 minutes per game routinely, right? Because like a lot of those guys on the list, when they get pulled out of games, it's just because they pick up 3 quick fouls. For Ayton, it really just does come down to the conditioning aspect of it. And I don't know. I would like to bet, again, perhaps optimistically, but bet on the conditioning being what we were sold this year, and I'll go over.
Yeah.
Why not? Fuck it.
For some extra context for Max, 30.7 minutes per game in his rookie year, 32.5 the year after, 30.7 again in 2021, and then 29.5, a career low in minutes this last season in 21-22. So if he were to average over 31 minutes per game, it would be the second most of his career to this point in his 5th year. So, Max, what do you think?
First of all, shocking that he was under 30 last year. I did not realize that. That is really strange, given his age and all that stuff. I think you guys made some of the points for why I want to go over on this already. Obviously, the crowd. To say the center rotation is crowded for the Suns is kind of like clogged toilets crowded. It's crowded, yes. Not necessarily full of stuff you want. I will say though, I kind of like Landale.
You weren't convinced by the preseason, and you're not a Bismack believer. He hasn't earned your trust.
Okay, but he's a little.
They're all fine backup centers. I think.
If you try to put Bismack in too big of a role, I don't think you can play Bismack the way you played JaVale last year that much.
I don't think you point at any of those three guys and instantly kind of say, yeah, he's one of the best backup centers in the league. And I think you could kind of do that with JaVale, So,
for sure.
Like, you wouldn't want to start JaVale, obviously, which is the reason he left. But
and the other reason why I want to go over on this is I think DeAndre Ayton is going to want to do more this season. I don't think that's controversial. He's just going to want to play more and take more shots and all that kind of stuff. So I just see him maybe demanding a little more play time.
All right. I'll write those down. I'm gonna go under, and I think he could average over 30 minutes per game again, but I'm gonna go under just to be different.
Contrarian. Okay, sure.
Yeah, we agree on too much. That's good.
I like it.
Yeah, I wanna, and I think I just think there's a chance he averages under 31 minutes, like something like 30.7, which he averaged 2 seasons. 18, 19, and 2021. I could see that happening again. And it's just under 31 minutes, and I think he could still be really productive in that amount of time. And I think that when I look at the list of centers that have played or that played over 30 minutes per game in this last season, it's just, Joel Embiid is sort of an outlier. Outside of that, Ayton's pretty massive compared to a lot of these guys. Maybe outside of Rudy Gobert, who just has less of a role offensively. And
Valanciunas in there was surprising to me. He's kind of like a heavy,
for sure.
30.3, so that's under 31 minutes, just as an example for Valanciunas. So it's just, I'm just going to guess slightly under. I would like to see, what if he played 33 minutes a game for this season? What would that mean for him? Could he be like, I don't know, maybe an all NBA center at the end of the year?
He's probably averaging 20 and 10 minimum without even changing anything about his offensive profile, just what that would mean for his stats. He's probably averaging 20 points per game.
Yeah. I think that just getting up there in that and being capable of playing through being tired, I think is something that Chris Paul and Monty Williams have mentioned with DeAndre. And it's not just about being tired. I think they sort of see being tired as a mental state, not just a physical state. And being capable of pushing through that is it's just something that they believe can be done mentally. But they're also not 7 feet tall.
Especially a factor especially factor Ayton too, because I mean his mental acuity is not always the best on the court all the time.
Right.
So when he's
Yeah.
tired, it's even worse. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's exciting. I think I'm actually kind of excited for Ayton this year. I kind
Me
of buy
too.
the stuff he's saying that is more he's more focused into more business now that he has his contract. We always make fun of that stuff that was his goal, but I actually think it was just a distraction for him.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it played out like that. I think at the end of the playoffs, I think it was something that you could see happening.
What else do you got for us?
Points per
Ayton-wise?
game.
Points per game. Classic.
Points per game.
25.
18.5.
Okay.
I put 18.5. He averaged 17.2. He has gone up in points per game every year of his career, as we know. With last year, actually, I did think he went down a little bit when Chris Paul first got here. But then now he's at 17.2. He can average 18.5, which is not out of the question for him. I think he was pretty close to that in the past. Maybe his rookie year?
18.2 his sophomore year. I'm looking at his page.
18.2 sophomore year. There you go.
Do you want to start?
But, as we talked about, we're talking about shots going around for this team and what he's capable of doing, minutes played, all kinds of that. I'll just give some extra context here. I went back and I looked at the points per game for a lot of the players that I put in the past, and often I think I was a little over enthusiastic with the numbers. So this year I tried not to push them too far to try and give something a little more realistic, which could end up in you guys going over every time. But just be aware that I adjusted how much I went over the previous season based on how off the numbers were in previous years for this one. So Max, what do you think? 18.5.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to start the train on that, going over on everything, because I'm going to go over here. For the reasons I said earlier on him, I just think he's going to come into this season a little more focused and play more. But also, the point that we were talking about earlier with the spacing in the starting lineup with Cam instead of Jay, I think will do wonders for him. I mean, he's going to have so many opportunities with Chris getting him the ball inside.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Sam?
Max, are we going to do a bit this year where we agree on everything?
Are
we going to commit to it?
We're on pace.
We have not disagreed yet, and I am slamming the over on this one as well. But it's just logical, because if I pick the over for minutes, again, like, he doesn't even have to change that much in terms of his like field goal attempts per minute rate or whatever to score 1.5 extra points per game, right? So I'm hitting the over here. I think it makes sense.
I'm going to do it too. I think we're all going over on this one. This could be one where we're all looking back at it and going, why did we do that? But I feel like, offensively is where I expect improvements for him this year.
We're all going over here. I think we can also, though, acknowledge that we understand there is a worst case scenario where Ayton is mentally checked out and averages like 14 points per game, because it's just, it doesn't work, right?
And plays 28 minutes a game, yeah.
Right, because we know that is a universe that exists, but I guess we're all just not hedging, but just hoping that doesn't happen. Choosing to be a little bit more optimistic. Optimism season has gotten to us, you could say.
Well, let's stick in that, because I also put this is the year that DeAndre Ayton averages over 3 free throw attempts per game is the question here. So he has never averaged over 3 free throw attempts per game, often hovering around 2.5-ish throughout his career. I set the number at 3 because I wanted it to be more than that, and I think you've seen some level of aggression towards the rim in the preseason. The question for Ayton will always be, will that be a consistent thing over the course of the season? And when you're talking about him getting to 18.5 points per game, how is he going to do that? Is it just more minutes, or are we expecting him to increase his free throw attempts? And I think, Sam, since Max went first last time, I'll start with you on this. What do you think about Ayton's free throw attempts?
I'm going over, man. 4 for 4 over. We're feeling good. I don't know if it's that I'm on vacation or what, but so far we're feeling pretty good about this. And look, I think it's extrapolating, but we talked a lot in the Ayton internal development episode that we did this year, Mike, about what we saw out of Ayton when he was the best version of himself in the New Orleans series. And Max, I think you would agree, but you could chime in. Like, that New Orleans series he was insane. We saw a level of counters from DeAndre Ayton and an ability to work towards multiple moves and a fluidity to his offensive game that I think we had never seen before. That, again, it's extrapolation, but if he can build on that, naturally I think the free throws will come. Do I think it is possible for Ayton to go from being a guy who averages 2 free throws per game to being Joel Embiid character who averages 7, 8, 9, whatever? No, I don't think that has any precedent in NBA history. But do I think he could go to 3.5 or 4? Yeah, I think maybe we could hope for that at the very least. So I'm taking the over.
All right.
Max? Yeah, I almost just have to go over here to correlate with my other overs and stick with Sam still. If he's gonna, raise the points per game up, I think that's in the minutes. And minutes are probably the more important thing. I mean, just the minutes alone, if they go up, should bring the free throw attempts up. And I agree. I think he's shown a little more aggression. The New Orleans series could not agree more. He was amazing. A lot of that was like every jump shot he put up went in.
That's true.
But that's who he is, man. He's money from those ranges. That one thing I'd like to see. It's not what this category we're talking about is, but the free throw percentage I'd like to see go up. It was 74.6 last year. He should be better than that. He should be around 80, I think, with his skill set. So hopefully we can see a rise in both those categories.
I'll go under on this one as well. It's
Boo.
just based. This
Hater.
is the history of how he's played.
That's fair.
He's
That's
never
fair.
done it before. You're asking for him to do something he's never done before.
No, I mean,
asking him to average over three
the
throws per game. You have to be really confident in it.
The probabilistic approach here of taking a guy who has failed to do this thing 4 times and then asking, will he do it the 5th try? Like, it's not the smart approach to say over what we're doing. But
yeah, what's the definition of insanity again?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, we'll see. Maybe this is the year.
Speaking of that, what you just described, Sam, last season, Mikal Bridges averaged 14.2 points per game, and his per 36 numbers on that from the previous season were almost exactly the same, in that his points per game went up mostly because his minutes per game went up. So this year, I set the Mikal Bridges points per game line at just 15 points, which is essentially increasing it if he were to go over by about 1 point per game, which is not asking a lot, but it is asking him to shoot more, assuming he does not play once again a career with the most minutes in the NBA, which he's capable of doing. But maybe this is a year where you don't do that to him over the course of a season. It's low, I'll admit again, but once again, with all the points per game totals in the past, they were all set pretty consistently a little too high. And this might be the lowest that we've had on Mikal Bridges before, so maybe the most realistic so far. Max, what do you think?
This one's really hard because I love the way Mikal looks right now. He looks jacked to me. I think he's coming to the season looking great. But I maybe this is where the Cam Johnson going to the starting lineup. Maybe this is where the points start to come away. And I'm going to go under here actually. I think because before he was playing with Jay Crowder, now he's playing with Cam Johnson more minutes. I think that's going to have an effect on him.
Yeah, I could see that. Sam, what do you think?
I am really, really tempted to go under here as well because just to be honest, like I feel like a year ago we were all like, yeah, Mikal, he could average 18 points per game. And honestly, I think based on the season he had and just seeing his mental unwillingness to take shots, like we all know he could average 18 or 20 points per game if he just took the shots, but he hasn't wanted to this point to take those shots. For me, it's been like a total reversal in my confidence in Mikal Bridges' ability to continue to grow as an offensive player. I still think he's a phenomenal player. All that being said, I want to disagree with Max at one point. So I think I'm going to say he averages 15.1 and hit the over just so that Max and I finally diverge on something.
Man, if it all goes according to your plan, Sam, we're going to average a lot of points per game.
I know. We're going to be my outcome here is like the greatest offensive team of all time at this point, but we'll take it.
Well, I don't decide what I'm going to say until we start talking through this. And I'm going to go over on this one as well. And I'm not super confident in it, and I think that shows kind of what we feel about Mikal offensively so far. I will agree with Max, though, on one thing. He looks the strongest he's ever been.
Yeah.
And I think there was some level of intent for him to drive to the rim and try to get free throws in preseason, which, if he gets the calls, could have an impact on his offense this year. But he was pretty good at that pull-up shot, at that little mid-range going left. And maybe that's something that he cuts out of his game, and I don't know how that impacts his shots. I think for Mikal Bridges, the story for him this offseason for Sam and I has just been shoot more shots, dude. Don't be afraid to shoot those shots. You got to shoot them at some point. Contested threes, pull-up threes, get to the rim if you can, but stop dribbling out of a three if there's space to shoot it. I think he just needs to launch it. The Suns just got killed in three-point attempts in the playoffs, but especially against the Mavericks. And I think when you have an offense built around Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, the other two guys on the floor need to launch threes because those three guys are not going to. They do different things than that. So we'll see if that ends up happening.
Yeah, I think last season there was a lot of don't fix what's not broken, right? They went to the finals the year before. They won 64 games. But I think now that they kind of had the turmoil they've had, there's time for experimenting with some of these guys. They gotta expand their games.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hey, how about Jock Landale? You want to do a Jock Landale one?
That's a weird left turn, but I'll take it. Let's do a Jock Landale one.
Jock Landale is the only one that I have, the only real one I have about a bench player because the bench is so depressing this year. But Jock Landale averaged, 4.9 points per game last season. But if I learned anything from preseason, it's one, that he's currently the backup center, and I think that that's going to be his role this season. And two, the dude shoots a lot. Mm-hmm. he shoots every time he touches the ball. We have yet to see him do much else. And, maybe that's just because he's not being guarded as an offensive threat in the preseason because people don't know how the Suns plan to use him compared to other teams in the past, or one other team, which is the Spurs. Or maybe he just likes to shoot. So JaVale McGee averaged 9.2 points per game as the backup center for the Suns last year. I'm going to say an over-under for Jock Landale points per game is 7.5, which increases his points per game by 50% from last year, which is an increase, but it is less than JaVale averaged. And I think Jock, offensively, from what we've seen, is just much more versatile. JaVale was really good offensively. I'll say that. He scored a lot of points for the Suns last year. But I'm going to put it at 7.5 for Jock Landale. And I'll go first, actually, since I'm making you guys go first every time. I think I'm going to go over on this one right away because I just think he's going to shoot a lot. And I think he'll be open a lot. So I'm gonna give him some level of faith. And look, I'm going over on all the points per game so far. So here we go. Here I go again, going over for someone. Sam, what do you think?
I'm going to go under here. I really like what I've seen. I mean, we've talked about it a couple times now, both on the main feed pod and the Patreon pod at this point. Jock's cool. He sets great screens. I think he's a smart player. I think there's a reason Monty's probably going to play him as the backup center for most of the season. The reason I say probably is because, I don't know, I could see some level of experimentation with there are stints where Bismack plays a little bit more and there are stints where Dario plays a little bit more 5. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. I mean, 7.5 is a pretty good line. You're actually making me think about this one, but I'm tempted to take under.
All right, I'm locking you in at under then.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I agree it's a great line. I was when you were bringing him up, I was thinking what the line might be. I was thinking 7 range, so that means I'm having a hard time figuring out where I want to go with it. I think I'm going to go under, and it's for the reason that Sam started to get into there about how I think they're going to experiment with the backup centers and change them around a little bit. So I think there will be games where he just doesn't play very much, and that'll bring his average down. But there will also be games where he'll score 15 points because he plays a lot.
Yep, I think I agree with that. I think if the Suns are good, like really good, or really bad, he's going to score more points.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If they're in a lot of games, he might not close any games, right? So I think there's a chance that just kind of sinks his points per game average. But if they're killing teams and then he comes in, plays the whole fourth quarter, scores 8 points in the fourth quarter, he's going to go over just based on that alone. Yeah. But he gets a ton of offensive rebounds. He sets screens really hard. He sprints up and down the court offensively and defensively. And what we've seen for this Suns team is if you do that, you're rewarded. And I think that just that kind of work that he's willing to put in it's gonna go well for him. I've really liked him so far. Maybe I'm being a little overly optimistic. I think he was like in a top 15 for like some sort of RPM type stat, like a BPM multiplier stat for preseason.
Wow,
which is kind of crazy.
I really liked his rebounding. I was like kind of shocked by how well he rebounds. He's really tenacious.
And here's another thing that I want to bring up. He played with Bismack at power forward, and it kind of worked. Like, it actually looked kind of good.
God, this is the most preseason conversation now. It's just like...
I think this is the first time we've done this before or after the preseason. I think it's usually either during or before the preseason starts. So maybe this is having too much of an impact on what I'm saying here, but it is what it is. Let's talk about the star player, Devin Booker. I have 2 for Devin Booker, and I think one is more of a strategic question here, and I think we'll start with that one. And this is a question of his total shots per game in the restricted area. And I'm going to go over his last few seasons and what he did. Last season, career low for him in shots in the restricted area, 2.9 per game, less than 3 per game. Previous seasons, 4.1, 4.7, 5.1, 3.9, and 4.1, meaning his rookie year, when he played very little until about halfway through the season, he still averaged 4.1 shots per game in the restricted area, which went down to 2.9 last season, a career low. I set it at 3.5, which feels high compared to 2.9, but would still be the second least of his career in shots in the restricted area. The reason I wanted to bring this one up, and we talked about it in the Devin Booker internal development episode, but he shot so great from 3. He shot a lot more pull-up threes than he had ever had shot in his career last season. But those shots took away from his shots at the rim. And the ideal version of Devin Booker, I think, is one where he's closer to 4 shots per game in the restricted area and then continues to launch threes, basically taking away some of those mid-range shots in favor of three-point shots and at-rim shots. Not to fully Morey ball Devin Booker because it's not the best version of him, but like I think you're talking about a player who can average pretty high points per game if he's capable of maximizing the best parts of his game as far as efficiency goes. So it's kind of a weird number, 3.5 shots per game in the restricted area. Sam, we'll start with you. You think he's going to go over or under that?
This is a really tough debate because I think the crux of it is Devin Booker is a really smart basketball player. He watches a lot of basketball, a lot of film. He knows what it takes to win. And I think he understands that good teams have rim pressure and probably that the Suns are lacking it, right? That they need more. On the other hand, he has however many years in the NBA now. He's had a few hamstring injuries. He's felt that pain. And also feels that pressure of knowing that the Suns need him to be available basically every game or as many games as possible in order to win. So I'm really torn. I'm tempted to go under here because I kind of feel like, I don't know, once you're 2 or 3 hamstring injuries in or whatever it is, and like once that athleticism starts slipping a little bit, you kind of just get into a comfort zone of playing in a different way. And I think Book has kind of settled into that. And it's great that he found the pull-up shooting stride when he did, because he's going to need to continue to lean on that now as he progresses in his career. I would really like for him to average like 4 restricted area shots per game or whatever for the record. But I think I'm going to hit the under.
Tough one. I think I'm going to diverge from you. I think I'm going to go over. And the reason is the theme we've been talking about a lot on this episode. I think there's going to be pretty good spacing in the starting lineup, and it'll probably be a little more open for him.
That's a good point.
And then also, the points you guys are making about, strategically, I think the Suns have to take from that playoffs that they need more rim pressure, and he's by far the best source of that on the team. Obviously, I totally agree he needs to save himself to some extent, and he'll know that, but Devin Booker to me is, I've always used this line, but he's more of an artist than a technician as a player, and I think that he kind of takes a lot of times like what's given to him and what the game, what he sees in the game, and I think he'll see more space. And I think while he'll want to preserve himself, I think he will attack the rim a little bit more.
All right, I think I'm going to go under 2 with you, Sam, with a hopeful tinge of hoping he goes over in that
I hope
one.
he does. I mean, if he does,
And
that's the MVP year. That's what we've talked about. That's like unlocking the rest of his game, right?
It's funny because as Max was talking about the spacing, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll go over. I almost got sold, but then I pictured him playing with the bench guys because he does play with the bench guys a lot. I'm like, oh, that spacing will be there when he's playing with the starters, but as soon as some of those guys go out, I think it might collapse. Well, but we'll see how the team changes throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, like
a significant portion here coming up.
No one's guarding. I mean, like they'll space 5 out when they go to the bench, right? But if it's like Jock Landale and Ish Wainwright and like Dwayne Washington, like people don't care.
Or Torrey Craig.
Or Torrey Craig. They're collapsing on Devin Booker
Damian
and
Lee.
daring someone else to hit the shot, and you can't blame them.
And I even think they'll do that with the starters too. But they'll just be a little more wary of Cameron Johnson. Just Devin Booker's such a threat when the ball's in his hands. It'd be cool to see him, like you said, if he gets 4 and then continues to shoot great from pull-up threes. I mean, that's how you get on the over for the next one, I guess. Because what I did is look at all of the previous years that I set lines for Devin Booker's points per game. I was over every single time what he actually ended up doing. And sometimes we went over. I think most of the time, all three of us went over for Devin Booker's points per game. But the reality of Devin Booker is for 5 seasons in a row, he's essentially been between 25 points and 27 points per game, with 26.8 being the high and 24.9 being the low. For 5 seasons in a row, very consistently done essentially the same thing in points per game with some variation of about 2 points per game. I still set it higher at 27.5, but this is the lowest line I have set for Devin Booker's points in the 4 years that we've done this podcast. Yeah.
27.5 is the lowest?
Yes, and I think it's like I think it's the exact same as maybe the first one we did 4 years ago. So it is still the lowest technically of that time, but it is a low number, but it's still high, 27.5 points per game. And I think the thing is like, maybe we've thought this every year if we go back and listen, but it kind of feels like this might be the year where it happens. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic. I have gone over in all of the points per games that we've said so far. So I might rethink this as we're talking through this right now. But 27.5 points per game for Devin Booker. Max, how you feeling about that?
Yeah, I feel like you have gone over every single time on Booker every year, and I feel like I lose on that every year. I'm going to learn my lesson. I'm going to go under here with using some of the logic that we've used before. Just generally that someone's going to have to score fewer points,
right.
And also with the idea that I'm hoping I'm reverse jinxing him, and then I'll be wrong again. That'd be nice.
All right, Sam.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Max. Big surprise.
This is the under year.
We've disagreed a few times in this episode, but yeah, this is the under year. And you were asking me. I feel like you were accusing me almost earlier of how am I gonna find points for DeAndre Ayton to hit his over?
Right.
And I said Mikal Bridges will hit his over, and Cam Johnson will hit his over. So I'm gonna allow Devin Booker to hit his under, and kind of give some room because I could totally see. I know you set the line for Ayton at like 18.5 or whatever it was. But like in my mind, there is this possibility where like Booker averages his usual 26 and like Ayton averages like 22, like right behind him. I'm not saying that's the most likely.
Be amazing.
I'm saying most likely is he averages whatever you set the line at, like 18-ish.
18.5.
But there's this idea in my mind of like, yeah, Ayton could. I guess what's more likely that Ayton averages like 21 and 11 or that Booker averages 30. For whatever reason, I'm leaning more towards the Ayton direction than the Booker direction this year, if that makes sense.
Okay. Not to be a hypocrite, I'm gonna go over. I'm just gonna do it. You know what? I'm going over on all of them. I'm Captain Optimist here. I went over on Cam Johnson. I went over on Mikal Bridges. I went over on Jock Landale. I went over on DeAndre Ayton, and now I'm going over on Devin Booker. So my whole point about finding shots for these guys is now fully undercut by my picks here. But I think about the bench, and I don't want any of those guys shooting shots at this point. So maybe they can find a way to just, anytime there's a starter on the floor, run the entirety of the offense through them in order to get them to shoot as many shots as possible. But, like I said, 27.5, it's an increase, but I think that there's a chance that this could be one of those seasons for Devin Booker when we look back on his career and say, wow, he was really in his prime. Because, he's at that age now, and he's had experience of winning in the playoffs, losing in the finals, and then losing in an embarrassing way in the playoffs. And I think what we've seen from Devin Booker is he usually bounces back pretty well from stuff like that. So I'm hoping that this is the year. All right, this is the one. It's a group. It's a group of questions here that are all similar. And I'll start it by saying this. There are 57 games between Wednesday's game 1 and the trade deadline. And that means that what we're going to pick right now is how many games that these guys are going to play for the Suns with the concept of the trade deadline is 57 games away. And for most of these guys, I set the game limit of 40, just kind of understanding that there's probably going to be some level of injuries between them. So as you're picking it, if you're saying over, you're essentially picking the concept of them lasting beyond the trade deadline. In fact, let's just trade. I know this is technically over and under. Let's just say, are these players going to be traded? Yes or no? Do you want to just make it as easy as that?
That would be easier.
Okay, let's just make it like that. Will these players survive beyond the trade deadline, or will they not? We'll say, are they being traded? We'll just word it like that, and I'm going to type it up. Are these players being traded? Let's start with DeAndre Ayton. I think DeAndre Ayton has the most control over any player on the Suns as far as whether or not he's going to be traded. We've seen some level of unhappiness from him in the offseason. He can pretend all he wants that things are perfectly normal. I don't believe him. Now, that's not to say that I think he's going to play badly. I clearly went over on his points, and I think if you listen to our internal development episode about DeAndre Ayton, I'm actually with Max in that I'm pretty excited about this season from DeAndre Ayton, and I kind of like the idea of him being a little angry, and I hope that translates onto the court. But he did sign a contract somewhere else. He seems to be on unsteady ground with Monty Williams as far as we know. Now, of course, they're talking now. They're not going to continue to not talk to each other for the rest of the season. But I don't know. I don't know if DeAndre Ayton's going to remain on this team beyond this year. Max, what do you think? Is Ayton going to survive on this team past the trade deadline?
Yes, I think he'll be on this team. There's just a lot of obstacles in the way. Obviously, He makes a ton of money now. If he doesn't play very well, he'll be hard to trade because he's making a lot of money and isn't playing very well. If he plays super well, then we presumably won't want to trade him unless it's for somebody really, really, really good, and it's just unlikely that will be a possibility. And then also he has the veto, right? So that makes it hard to trade him too. So there's so many obstacles in the way.
What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, no, Max is I don't even have to expand. There's too many roadblocks. Max is 100% right. I could see it happening next summer. If this is just ends up being a disastrous season, but I don't think it's going to happen at the trade deadline this year.
I think it could, but I think it's more likely that he stays than he doesn't. So I'm going to agree with you guys that DeAndre Ayton is going to remain on the team beyond the trade deadline, and that's how I'm going to word these questions. Just so we say yes, that means they stay. If we say no, that means they're going to be gone. I think he'll be here, but I do think that there is a world where he's traded even if the Suns are good. And it's just because he has a firm level of control over that. If he's unhappy, if he doesn't like his place with Monty, if he envisions himself as a different type of player on a different team, then I think he could find a way out. And look, this is a team that's acquiescing to Jay Crowder. If DeAndre Ayton wants to be traded, I think he'll be traded. I know he's got a few years on his contract left, but I think he'll probably be traded. If
they're really
being
traded, quite kind to Jay Crowder, all things considered. if we're being
Yeah,
honest
no
about
doubt.
that situation.
I have 5 players in this list. Let's go to the next one. Cameron Payne. Is Cameron Payne going to remain on the team beyond the trade deadline? I mean, part of me wonders if Cameron Payne's going to be on the team a few weeks from now.
Wow.
At this point,
Interesting.
only because if you're packaging Jay Crowder with someone, there are some obvious options.
Yeah.
And I think Cameron Payne is an obvious option. Maybe you can find a way to trade Jay Crowder and Cameron Payne for an upgrade at the guard position coming off the bench. And Cameron Payne was, I mean, he was bad last year, I think. And he was bad last year to the extent that he didn't even play in the playoffs at the end. They were finding ways to just avoid putting him on the floor because he just was so bad. There was some injuries that he was battling. And there is the idea of this bounce back season for Cameron Payne. Well, all of a sudden he actually is playing really well, and that is a possibility. But Max, what do you think? Do you think Cameron Payne will remain on the Suns beyond the trade deadline?
You know, when you first brought this up, I was going to say yes, but I think just while you were talking there, you kind of convinced me to go no, because I think the obvious thing that this team needs to upgrade the most, I think most people would agree, is like a backup guard of some kind. So if the trade that would be ideal, I don't know who it would be, but a Crowder Payne package for an upgrade in the backcourt in that way would be probably what would be ideal. So yeah, maybe you've convinced me. I do agree with you. He wasn't very good last year. I think it'd be mainly for salary purposes, and he's got a good salary for combining with Jay, so it makes some sense.
Yeah. What do you think, Sam?
I'd still rather trade Landry than Cam, so I'm gonna say Cam gets to stay. You know, I don't think
All right.
you get. I don't think you get to watch.
The other team has to agree to the trade, though, Sam.
Yeah, I didn't even put Landry Shaman on this because of that reason.
I don't think we get to watch Dwayne Washington Jr. commit 11 turnovers one time, and then that's enough for us to say fuck campaign. We're like, I know that's not what you guys are saying, but I think we need him more than maybe Suns fans even realize now, and that's why I'm hopeful that we get a bounce back season of some sort. And yeah, I'm gonna bet on him staying.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that he's gone. I'm gonna agree with Max on that one, only because I think there's a good chance that he is on the team. Here's the deal about all of these questions. I have 4 guys, and I'm gonna do an over under for the last guy. But the reason that this is an important question for this team this year is because I think that this is the most likely year where something is traded. Something happens. Like, I don't think that this is just a Jalen Smith for Torrey Craig year. I think even if the Suns are pretty good, we saw what happened in the playoffs when they're pretty good. And Chris Paul, this is probably the last year where you can make a case that there's some type of contention going on with Chris Paul as a major piece on your team. Any further than this, I think you're stretching it. And even now, I think there's some level of stretching to that. And if you trade for a star, you're going to need, first of all, a good player and salary, because our good players are all on pretty good contracts right now. And so there's going to be some other types of players.
Landry's got more salary. I'm just saying.
He does? No, and I didn't include him on the list, but you bring up a good point. I mean, we could add him if you want. Do you want me to add Landry Shamet?
No, Monty they like him too much. I don't know why, but they like him too much. They won't do anything about it. But
hey, he made a lot of threes in that preseason game, Sam.
Yeah, he was. It was really great, and if he could play like that, he'd be an all-star. But we've never seen that. Cameron Johnson, starting now on the team. If you're trading Cameron Johnson,
it's for something
you're hoping
big. It's for
you're hoping
big.
for Kevin Durant or something, right? You're hoping for an all-star level player on a team, getting a player from a team that maybe is trying to tank at some point, or a team that maybe their best player got injured or something happened and you're trying to steal someone, or maybe Kevin Durant. Yeah, Kevin Durant, if he's available again in the middle of the year. I think this one and the next one is Mikal Bridges. In fact, we can cover both of those. It's the same case for both of these guys. I'll go first. I'm going to say that both of these guys are on the team beyond this year. I added both of them to this list just because I don't know for sure. I just think that the most likely case is that these players remain on the team beyond this year. But this is the first year where at the beginning of the year, I think to myself, maybe not. There is a scenario where one of these guys is traded. Now, part of Jake Fisher's piece that he wrote about the Suns recently when it pertains to the Jay Crowder situation was that the Suns did not want to include Cameron Johnson in a trade for Kevin Durant, which was somewhat of a problem with that trade. I have since learned from a different perspective that was likely because the Nets were also asking for DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. So the Suns essentially did not want to trade DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cameron Johnson for Kevin Durant. If that's true, I think it signals some level of willingness to trade DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges for Kevin Durant, which is kind of a different scenario. So I guess based on everything we've learned about this team, supposedly they tried to trade DeAndre Ayton for Sabonis last year. Supposedly they tried to trade up to 3 of these guys for Kevin Durant this offseason. I think there's a chance that at least one of these better players, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, is gone at the trade deadline for some level of improvement depending on what's available. But the most likely scenario is that they stay. So I'm still going to go yes, that they're on this team beyond the trade deadline. But Max, what do you think?
Yeah, you almost have to go yes, just because the only way they get traded is if it's for a star or some kind, and that trade's just unlikely. But
trades are rare. Yeah,
I didn't hear that about that the Nets asked for those 3, and then we said no. I mean, man, I kind of would say yes to that if I'm them. But okay.
Oh, to all 3?
Yes,
if you were the
absolutely.
Suns, you would trade all 3 of them for Kevin Durant?
It's Kevin Durant. I mean, when you look at NBA history, you only win the title in almost all cases when you have a player like Kevin Durant in your team. I think it's a no-brainer, honestly.
Would you do it even still if it include all the picks? I mean, like 4 picks and 3 swaps.
Every single pick. Yeah, the whole boat of picks and those 3 guys.
I mean,
that's where it gets tough. Yeah.
Envision what that lineup looks like then, though, Max. Not that you're wrong or anything, but so it would be Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and I mean, what's the rest
Carmelo
of the starting
Anthony,
5? Carmelo Anthony,
Marcus Aldridge.
That's probably when you bring in Carmelo Anthony and Marcus Aldridge, and hey, maybe can you win a title with that? Maybe.
And the hope is that they would have actually done other things, unlike what they did in the summer after they did that. They could, some of those hanger-on veteran guys who come later. Maybe we got a few of them. There wasn't a ton of those guys this year, but Schroeder. I don't love Dennis Schroeder for example. Maybe he comes here. Yeah. Those kind of things would help. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, obviously, it's not a complete slam dunk because it would have vitiated our roster completely to do it. It's just if it's Kevin Durant, I think you just got it. If it's not for this year, you do it for next year.
What do you think, Sam?
They're both staying. I mean, like, what star are we even evaluating on that? And don't say Julius Randle because you're only gonna upset me. I point out, by the way, the Julius Randle trade never involved either of those guys to begin with. So what real star are we talking about on the market right now who's like position we're evaluating to dangle one of these guys? I don't think we have a name.
Maybe SGA.
Yeah, SGA. I mean, that's the one. That's the only one, right?
I mean,
but
Durant,
I don't think
if everything goes bad in Brooklyn, Durant could still be traded.
I don't think the
problem with
Thunder.
SGA too is why do the Thunder want those guys? They want like mid-20s swing guys.
No, they don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Yeah, the Thunder. I mean, if the Thunder are already trading SGA when he's like 24,
right,
he's not 29, he's not 33. He's like very much capable of existing on their timeline as long as they don't drag out their timeline by 5 more years, which they seem to want to do for whatever reason.
I think there's a world where they could convince themselves that DeAndre Ayton works.
I think that makes sense. Yeah,
I don't think the SGA trade
for the picks mostly.
I don't
matching
think
salary. He's still relatively young. He's not going to make you win like by himself too many games to take you out of the race for any significant players. And he kind of works with the players they have right now.
Chet and him is kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, Chet, him, and Wemby. Can you imagine? You could potentially.
Well,
I'm kind of serious too.
He won't get to play with either one this year, at least. So.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, if that's a good point.
He'll play 50 games, and then they'll shut him down, and then he'll get pissed off, and then he requests the trade next summer. I think is the most likely.
Push all the chips into.
Yeah, that's what a timeline for an SGA trade would look like. I don't think it would be too soon to happen in February.
Yeah, I think that there is a world where the Suns go, okay, we're not going to win a title this year, whatever. Well, we have options to make massive changes next year. We'll still have a relatively good team. And Suns fans will all get pissed off and maybe angry about it. But maybe that's the smartest move for the team just to play this year out and try to make some moves next year when they have more flexibility. The DeAndre Ayton thing, in that he's not capable of being traded without his permission this year, makes it a little more complicated if they want to move him. Not saying they do, but it is one piece that they have some complication with. Whereas after the season ends, especially if they extend Cameron Johnson, by the way, which they only have a few days to do that, but if they extend Cameron Johnson, they go into the offseason with a bunch of good young players on long contracts, and they have the ability of moving pieces around if they end up wanting to do that. It's not fun to think about, and they probably won't be competing for a title with that mindset. But, long term, and with a new owner, maybe with a lot of money, that could potentially be the best play for the Suns this year, as boring as that is. I had another guy, but I'm just going to give this one an over-under. Jay Crowder, games played for the Suns, 1. Are we going over or under on this one? Is he going to actually play for the team this year, or is he done? What do you guys think? Sam?
Max, did you say me?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, he's done, right? Like, we both agree on this one, I would say.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, he certainly says he's done. I'm gonna take his word.
I mean, it would be pretty funny if, I don't know, if there was a game where like the Suns had a bunch of injuries and it's like appearing out of the tunnel, fourth quarter. It's a close game. Who is that? Who is that?
He's on a wheelchair for some reason.
It's Boss Man 99. Like that would be kind of funny. But no, I think in all seriousness, I think he's probably done. And we had a good run, but we'll see what we can get to bolster the bench in his place.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say under 2. I think they're gonna trade him, but I don't think that necessarily means it's gonna be in the next 2 days.
No, it's likely for it to keep going into the season at this point, I think, and that's fine with me too. I mean,
me too.
You don't want to lose regular season games and lose your equity regular season or whatever, but you also don't want to make a bad deal, and guys will get hurt as the season goes on. September 15th obviously opens up more trades. I would not rush this thing.
Yeah, I agree. Just let it. If you have to wait, even if like you said, even if it's a month and a half, 2 months, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. It sucks, and look, I think it indicates some level of I don't know. The Suns. It was a good idea for the Suns to try to trade for Kevin Durant. It was a great idea. In fact, I would call it the best possible outcome if they ended up trading for him, of course. But at this point, it makes everything a little more complicated. And if they were just to make a move, as much as I think fans would just be happy for something different, I'm not sure it would be the smartest thing. Maybe you just hold out, even if it means losing a few games here to start the season.
Yep. Speaking
of wins and losses, I looked up FanDuel because they're the ones that are at the arena. The over-under for the Suns is 52.5, not to give them any free advertising.
That's the one I've seen floating around too, anyway.
Yeah, it seems to be the most common number. I think it actually started a little higher on some other books. The Suns obviously won 64 games last year. This is a significant drop for them if they were to win 52 and go under. 53 wins last year is what the Warriors won, and they were the 3 seed. So just some context on what 53 wins, which is an over, would mean for the Suns. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. Obviously, they're still a really great team, but it's an 11-win drop just to go over, and it could mean the 3 seed. So if you're saying over, it means the Suns could still be in the top of the Western Conference. And I think this year, with the Western Conference being as good as it is, maybe there isn't a team that wins 60 wins in the West this year. Maybe they're all in and around the 50s towards the top of the Western Conference. I struggled with this number, if I'm being 100% honest, just because of the lack of movement, the lack of change, the possibility of injuries impacting this team dramatically compared to previous years because of the lack of depth, changing the starting lineup, the DeAndre Ayton situation, and of course Jay Crowder holding out. I think there's a lot of reasons that people consider the under on this number. I'll start, Max. I'll start with you on this one. What do you think about this number, over under 52.5 wins for the Suns?
It's a really good number. Last year, I think we all were like, what is Vegas doing? What is this number? It made no sense last year. And it was the easiest over ever. This year, it feels, a lot of it's because I kind of feel like they accomplished the regular season last year. They beat the regular season video game last year, and it didn't do much for them. So I think this year it's just not going to be as much of a focus for them. And they're obviously also not as deep. We don't think, at least. As you mentioned, the Jay Crowder situation might hinder them a little bit early on. I'm going to go under, I think, but it's not really a reflection of how I feel about the team generally. I think they could go under here and still be really good and have a good shot in the playoffs. I just don't think the regular season is going to be the priority.
Yeah. I'll just say it right now before you go, Sam. I'm going to agree with that.
You're going under too? What the hell?
Under, and I think they can go under and beat.
What is this? No,
I think they could win 52 games. They could win 52 games, and that might be the 1 seed. You know, like it might. You know, it's not even.
We've seen
necessarily.
I mean, have we ever seen a full 82 game season in the Western Conference where 1 seed they were 52-30? I don't think we've seen that.
The closest. Do you remember that year? Actually, it was the year we went to the Western Conference Finals. I think when the Suns did against the Lakers.
No, I definitely.
The whole league was like packed up really close around 50. I don't remember what the high seed was though.
No, I definitely remember that. I think the Lakers were the one. If they weren't the 1 seed, they were very close, and I think they were 57. Yeah, so I remember years like that where it was like the 1 seed was 57 and the 8 seed was 50, and it was like, yeah, I mean, if you think about that, there's basically no spread between them. But
in 2012. Which is the year, 2012, the year the Suns won 33 games. The Spurs were at the top. Oh, that's 15-16. That's a shortened season. That's probably why.
Shortened season. Yeah, I don't think anyone gets
count.
I don't think you can get to number 1 with like less than 55. I can struggle to think of a season with less than 55.
What year was it the Suns won 48? Was that 2014?
Yeah, it was 2014.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
Curious. They missed the playoffs for those who don't remember. The most games ever won by a team missing the playoffs.
Didn't the Spurs have like 60-something that year?
They did. They had 62 wins. What a crazy season for the West. My God. The East was just getting killed on a night-to-night basis.
So you guys both went under.
The East has had multiple seasons with teams, by the way.
That's the East. That's the weaker, You guys both went under. I'm gonna go over. I mean, I'm not going over by much. I'm not going over by much. I think, they're maybe a 55-win team. They're not a 60-win team again this year, in my view. A bunch of stuff has to break crazily right. Obviously, the depth is a concern. And, there's real implosion potential here that I think you guys are definitely considering as well, right? So, like, a lot of it makes sense.
I am.
But it's natural to feel that way.
And
but
I
it's
also think, 5th seed, 6th seed for the Suns. I'm not saying that's entirely out of the question.
Yeah, I think
any team that has an injury is going to drop out of the top of the Western Conference.
Is it crazy?
Be that easy this year?
Is it possible to be a 5th seed with 54 wins? Has that happened before? Because
maybe
that would be tough.
I could see that. I mean, the other thing you guys have to consider, right, is
the Trailblazers were a 54-win team in 2014 with 5th seed.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, it's also the year of Wemby, right?
True.
There's some shameless stuff going on around the league where, like, if we see a record number of teams at the bottom, those wins will naturally funnel to the top. They have to go somewhere. And so we could see some win inflation almost from that if there are enough teams in, like, the 20-win range because they all want to tank. Like, the Spurs are going to be terrible. The Jazz are going to be terrible. The Rockets are going to be terrible. That's 3 Western Conference teams that are absolute bottom feeders right there, and there could be more for sure. I mean, the Kings could bottom out again at any point. I don't know.
Yeah, the moment a team like the Blazers or the Kings loses one of their best players to an injury, they might just go full tank at that point.
Yeah. So. I think it's going to be you don't talk too much shit now. We're not in position to with that team.
They got worse. Now. If Luka's hurt, I don't know what that team's going to do.
No, if Luka gets hurt, that team's fucked. But I think
I don't want Wemby to go there though. Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
We could see real inequality or like just a real gap between the good teams in the West and the bad teams in the West this year. So I don't know. The main thing here, though, why I'm picking over, I just can't think of that many teams in history that had more than an 11-win drop from year to year with as much continuity as the Suns have. The exception being if they have a catastrophic injury. And, of course, that's always a consideration. If the Suns have a catastrophic injury to Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, then the season is over. If they have
Devin Booker is really all it would take.
If they have a Derrick Rose-style Bulls injury, like when the Bulls went from being 1 seed to out of the playoffs all of a sudden, like that's a team that I would think of that was like really good and then suddenly they were whatever.
But what if Booker just misses like 20 games to start the season or something?
Yeah, but I think they'll scrape. I think they'll scrape their way to 500 in those games, and they could. There's still a path to 54 wins there. I think they can still do it. I can't think.
You bring up a lot of great points.
Name me a team that like dropped 15 games in the standings from year to year without a heavy external factor. Like a big trade, a big player they lost in free agency or something outside of the catastrophic injury. Like just because the vibes were bad. I can't think of a team that comes to the top of my head.
What about the Rockets?
The Rockets actually were the Rockets are a great example. I think they lost 13 or 14 wins the year from when they went 7 games against the Warriors in the playoffs to that next year when I think they lost in the second round. Like they won 66 games, and then the next year I think they only won like 52 or 53, something like that. So they're a good example.
65 to 53.
It was their second,
which is
Chris
the same
Paul
number
year.
of losses that it would take. Yeah. 65 and 17 to 53 wins the next year, which was the second year with Chris Paul.
I think that
on the team.
I think that's the worst. Not the worst case. There are worse cases, but I think that's the example.
Chris
that
Paul
the
was
Suns
on
are
that team. That's interesting.
Yes, that's what the Suns are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid becoming that team. But I think most teams in history that win 65 games do not become the 2018 Houston Rockets. Most of them are better than that.
Well, Jay Crowder's really good. Really good. I'm only being slightly sarcastic there.
We'll get over it.
Because I think he actually will make a difference in this team losing some games just because the lack of just another good player. The last point I want to make on my under here is I think there's a chance the Suns are just a better team after the trade deadline than they were before the trade deadline, and they end up closing the season well and going into the playoffs as a better team with maybe some struggles before that trade deadline because just the lack of depth that they have right now. And to that point, the last question we have is Suns playoff series wins. Confidently last year I said 2.5, basically asking you guys if they could get to the NBA Finals again. This year I'm just putting it at 0.5. Will the Suns make the second round for sure in this year? And feel free to answer it however you want, because it's either that or I say, will they make the Western Conference Finals? And I think this year is a year where it's like, I don't know, the Western Conference Finals is not a guarantee for even the best of the teams in this year. It'd be insane to bet on that because there's so many good teams in the West. And injuries will have such an impact on who gets there at the end.
Max, do you want to start here? Will the Suns win a playoff series?
I think Suns fans are going to be like, what? That's a terrible line, too low, all that stuff. I don't think it is. It's just because the West is crazy this year. I mean, we could easily end up in a first-round series against a full-strength Clippers or whoever,
Yeah, what if the Pelicans, if you end up in the high seed, the Pelicans play really well with Zion, but then he misses 40 games and he comes back in the playoffs.
Dude, like,
and all of a sudden you're playing the fully healthy Pelicans with Zion.
I know exactly what you're going to say to this, Mike, because you're going to be obnoxious about it, but like even the Timberwolves, like there are teams that I kind of dread playing a first-round series that...
Well, Karl-Anthony Towns will be bad, and
I'm okay playing against Cat. I'll take Cat. That's fine.
I thought you guys were going to go the Gobert route. You decided to knock on Cat instead. But
he's been bad at the playoffs.
Are we sure this? I think the Suns are favored in that series. Are we sure they beat the Timberwolves? How many games do they beat them in? 6?
No, it's not. Nothing is guaranteed. And you get like one small injury to the Suns, and you could easily lose against any of these teams.
I think that team would have a really hard time. I don't know how to turn into a breakdown of this, but that team would have a really hard time guarding us, I think. In the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think they're built for it.
There's easily 4 or 5 teams that you can name just off the top of your head that like you dread playing in a first round series, and that's not a good sign.
No, to your point, they're not a normal 7 or 8 seed if they're the 7 or 8 seed. To your point, like it's going to be really hard to win a series in this year. All that said, I'm going to go over.
There's 6 good teams, right? In the West, you can say, right? Meaning 2 of them are at least are going to lose in the first round.
For sure.
Just where we're at.
Maybe LeBron and Anthony Davis have an amazing season together, and they're formidable. There's just a lot in the West right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over just because I like the team better. Kind of as you're getting to, Mike, after the trade deadline, kind of as they get towards the end of the season, I think they'll be better. And I like their chances kind of going in sort of under the radar a little bit into the playoffs and winning a series. So I'm going to go over.
Sam? Over for me as well. But I just think it's going to be hard. Like, I just don't want to give people the wrong idea. It's going to be hard, but I'll go over.
For sure.
I'm going to say over. I don't think it's going to be easy to, and I don't think that. Look, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to be disappointed if they lose in the first round, but I think there's going to be good teams that go down in the first round, and I hope it's not the Suns. But I just think they're too smart, they're too savvy, and if Chris Paul's healthy, that's the other part of it. Of course, if Chris Paul's healthy, then I just think they can beat any team in the first round, depending on who they're matched up against. But,
All I'm gonna
could
say,
be 4-5, and they're playing the Warriors in the 4-5. All of a sudden,
that would
you
suck.
never know.
If we, all I'll say is if we play the Nuggets, we better win because I've talked too much shit. I feel like
Zach Lowe will be heartbroken.
In general, I've done a fairly good job about like staying modest or staying humble or whatever against most of these teams. Like, I haven't talked that much shit on most of these teams. Honestly,
We like the Pelicans.
We've
been really nice to that team.
Pelicans fans were nasty in that series. Like they
hate us.
They hate us, and like
we like them.
I like them.
The team is very likable. The
Yeah.
team of the Pelicans, the players, other than what's his face, the guy who was the jerk ass in the bench.
Alvarado, yeah. But we can't. Lose to the
if
Nuggets.
you're cheering for him, though, it's probably fun.
We cannot lose to the Nuggets. That would be my own personal disaster.
No, I agree.
All right, good stuff. I would say there is a mix of optimism with some healthy skepticism, I would say, going in to this year based on the answers. There's a lot of overs to start this podcast with, and the only player that we think could be or has the most likely to be traded is Cameron Payne. Poor Cameron Payne. I still think there's a possibility of a bounce back year for Cam Payne. I'm going to say it again. But I think it's going to be more than anything else. This is the season that, and I think this proves it, that is the hardest to predict of any year that we've done this so far. Not that we would have predicted a finals run in that year 2 years ago, but we thought they were going to be good. We were really confident in that. So I think it's going to be a really interesting year. Max, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate this. We're going to obviously keep track of this. If you're listening now, make sure to fill out your answers in the fan option. It'll be in the description of this episode. I'll tweet it out on Twitter. But Max, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Had fun as always, and let's hope the optimism part is reinforced by the team, and the pessimism is not.
That's right. And back after Game 1, it's not too far away.
See you guys in 6 months after the Suns have gone 44-38.